The competitive 40K network presents Art of War. Art of War. Strategy and tactics. Discussions with the best players on the planet. Now your host, Nick Nanavati.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Art of War podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nanavati, and this week we are joined once again by a recurring guest, Nassim Fouchane from Team England. How you doing, Nassim?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me on, Nick.
Now, Nass, you've been on quite the tear. You've been playing Astra Militarum for a while now. You came on the show maybe 6 months ago, talked about your list after a big win. Then you took them to the WTC where you played some of the top players in the room, and that's the top players in the world. And you did really well there. And now you're back at it with a brand new list and a brand new meta with brand new units after the balance data slate and updates. And you're at it again. You won Coventry, 3-day tournament. Big, enormous tournament in the UK, in England. My apologies. Congratulations, man. That's really awesome.
Thank you. It's quite tough.
Yeah, I that's what we're here to unpack, right? Like, I want to know how this Astra Militarum works, why everyone needs to be aware of it, why we need to be afraid of it, and how to get it nerfed again so that it stops ruining everyone's day. This is part one of a two-part show, everybody. In part one, we're going to break down this list, how it works, and the strategies and tactics Nass used to take down the super major. And then in part two, we're going to get into the actual games, the play-by-plays, and the moves he made on the table against the meta as wide as this one. You don't want to go anywhere. You want to catch these episodes. Stay tuned. And we can't do the show without you, so thank you so much for your support. Nass, let's do it. Tell me about your guard adventures. Last time you on the show, you had 18 Bulgrin. Now there's no Bulgrin. It's a different world here.
Whoa. There was still 9 Borgren here, despite the heavy point increases.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see them. There's only 9, and I just my eyes glossed over those.
There's only 9. Yeah, they're still great. I mean, basically what happened is the Borgrens merged into one. They fought each other to see who would survive in the ring, and then the top 9 made it out. That's what happened.
Nice. We have a new unit on the block with the Aquilons. Most players, I don't even know if they have heard of this unit, let alone know what it does or how it's going to ruin their Cheerios. But break it down for me. What are the Tempestus Aquilons?
All right. So let's break it down from the very top to the very bottom. So they are the newest release from the Kill Team box. God bless Kill Team. And they are essentially a deep striking unit that have okay weapons. However, the main good thing about them is they have the 3-inch deep strike, and it's 10 models in that unit with 3-inch deep strike. And there's an ability on the Tempestus Prime where when they're set up initially, whether that be from rapid ingress or from when they're set up in the movement phase, they can shoot a turret weapon, which is usually a flamer, which is D6 plus 3 shots. And the beauty of this unit is that so when you bring them in, you essentially shoot that twice, clear a lot of chaff. And the best part about it, of course, is as most things do with the synergies that you have with guard, it only costs 90 points. So it's pretty good. At either rapid ingressing to take extra primary, or let's say someone wants to have a pest charge into you and happens to not have the fly keyword, then they're stuck there. And they're just great for just move blocking armies in general, killing chaff, and just being a great disruption piece and scoring piece whereas before you didn't necessarily have it. Now you do. And armies like Eldar completely hate this unit because they're made of tissue paper. Even stuff like marine backfield objective holders end up falling to 1 to 2 of these units, and a lot of the meta where they try to have cheap backfield objective holders, you have something like Aquilons that come in and ruin the day, which is always great for the guard player.
So it's basically just some Scions with a flamer that shoots twice for some stupid reason, and they deep strike 3 inches away, which gets even crazier with rapid ingress, of course. But you're using this kind of like as a backfield skirmish dealer, backfield threat annihilator, and a move block, like a very painful move block.
Exactly. And the good thing about them is that they force your opponent to play in certain ways. Like in my game vs. Josh Roberts, when I played him on stream, he had to always think about it and overcommit resources to stop me scoring extra primary. Whereas I was just hanging back stress-free and be like, okay, he's just giving me things to kill now. I guess I'll just rapid ingress next turn. Oh, guess what? I won't even rapid ingress, but I'll kill the things that you've tried to screen out my Aquilons. They just cause a lot of problems for the price points, which is just quite fun. I do enjoy that.
That is something. Guard did not need more, but they got it. That's for sure.
God
So tell
bless.
me about this Astra Militarum list that you took to Coventry. Let's just break it down top to bottom.
Yes, so the list is Leontus, can't leave home without him. One Tempestus command squad to go with the 10-man unit of Scions. A platoon command squad of the mortar, so that attaches to Leontus. So you can give orders 24 inches away like a normal person, the sane person. You have a tank commander as well, there to order the tanks. 3 units of Catachans, one of which will be attached to Leontus and the command squad. You have one 3-man Borgren unit and one 6-man Borgren unit, one Hellhound, 2 Leman Russ battle tanks, one Exterminator, 2 units of Volgrens, so the Ogre Boys, making a return, and then 2 units of Aquilons and the 1 unit of Scions that I mentioned at the start.
Man, that is a lot of stuff. Is the first thing that comes to my mind. Like you just kept reading and reading and reading, and then there were Ogren, and like there's a lot of data sheets that I think are not commonly seen in competitive guard lists, and I want to understand what you're doing with all of them. It looks like a very balanced, well-rounded Astra Militarum list. What is the play pattern of it, if you would, like the actual strategy to it on the game? Are you just shooting people with guns and hoping it works? Like I'm sure there's more to it.
Yeah, so there's definitely the shoot people with guns part, which does work like a treat. It's it's quite fun. However, you have multiple layers. You have the Catachans, which are your early game scoring pieces that scout move. So they're able to do most of the cards uh, that you're able to draw and are quite high OC, so are able to flip points because you have 20 to 30 OC with those 10 models, which is quite good. It's very powerful. Um, you have the Leman Russ battle tanks, which are just a very tough and annoying breakpoint, and synergize quite well with one another. And what else you have in the list? Toughness 11 with a 2+ save. The Hellhound that's able to strip cover, so you're able to buff you're able to really kill a singular or 2 targets quite well, as you're able to stack fields of fire for extra AP with the mortar, then shoot a hound to ignore cover, and then shoot an exterminator to have extra AP because it's the castigator ability. And you have stuff like the ogres and the Borgren, which are able to play the mid board in the mid game with the tanks after people try to commit to kill the Catchans and the other elements that you send into the middle. And then on top of this, you have the deep striking elements. You have 20 idiots that deep strike 3 away that what are able to do with with the Aquilons, you bring them in, you come down with the flamer in the movement phase. If you bring both units in, you will usually kill a chaff unit, which then means that no one's screening there anymore, and you can drop the big brick of sounds into that spot and really create space. And you have all of these threats that synergize quite well with one another. You have the tanks and the Borgren push in the middle with the Catachans, and then you have the deep striking parts that absolutely squeeze the life out of your opponent's backfield and really compresses them into the middle where all the guns are.
So it sounds like a really exciting Astra Militarum list, and it's kind of not what meets the eye. When you came onto the show and team, I really thought this would be like Leman Russ's times a million, like multiple Scion squads, and then the Aquilons are like tabling me from inside my own deployment zone. But it's actually not that at all. It's like a much more balanced board control army, right? You've got the early game skirmish from Catachans inside their chimeras who scout forward, and then the tank is cheap, the dudes are cheap. Then you've got Bulgren and Ogren, which are like that meaty mid-game, like tie you up, kind of hold some ground type of stuff. You've obviously got still firepower, battle tanks, exterminators, hellhounds, and I love the stacking layered debuffs there. Right, the hellhound after shoots targets ignore cover. After the exterminator shoots target, extra AP. Battle tank now messes your day up, and beyond all that, on top of all that, there's 3-inch away deep striking like pinpoint units and the Tempestus Scions, which hit like ludicrously hard in their shooting. So you really are balanced and have it all. And I'm finding nowadays, as I interview players, that approach, just having like a good army that can do it all in Warhammer, seems to be the most rewarded approach to playing the game in terms of tournament results at the highest level. So is there a gimmick to your army, or is it just like good Warhammer?
I think there's really much of a gimmick, apart from the fact that Guard is just a fundamental honest 40k quite well. It's got the OC manipulation, it's got the movement, it's got the shooting, it's got the defensive profiles. Like it doesn't fly. There's no like outside of Aquilon dropping free away and being able to bring back a unit, there's no like tricks, no like fall back and charge, there's no advance and charge, there's no advance and shoot, there's no fall back and shoot. It's very honest, fundamental core 40k, but it does it so well compared to a lot of our armies in the game, due to the fact that it has a lot of these things that synergize very well with one another. Like you're able to give a unit across the like 24 inches away, +1 ballista skill. If you need to control a point and deny it in your opponent's turn, you can extra OC and deny that point. If you need a little bit of extra movement, you've got the +3 move order. You just have a lot of flexibility, and I think that's what Guard's main strength is at this moment in time. It can just do it all, and it does it all to a pretty good level, despite the lack of tricks. It's got a very good game plan with how it plays the game, compared to a lot of other armies. And a little bit less of a backup, as it doesn't have those tricks to pull it out of a tight spot. So if something goes wrong, then it really does go wrong. But if you're able to make sure that things don't go wrong and you really understand the matchups that you play and you really understand the game that you're playing and how you're going and what your win condition is, then it's a very rewarding army and it's quite tough to play against.
It definitely has been. I know you and I have played a couple practice games outside of the tournament scene, and they have not gone my way. I will say, your card army's been brutal. With regards to like how it plays different matchups, we're going to cover all that stuff in part 2 in detail as we go through your tournament and those specific matchups. Now you've coached them, but like I've seen you play it, and I can only imagine it's like it's consistent through many of the games. You kind of layer your approach with the army, it seems, where like Leman Russ hang out further back and like the Hellhounds, the Chimeras drive first in the first wave, and you just kind of send the Bulgrin forward like with no fear in the world. What is your goal in the early game, and like how do you set those models up in terms of turn 1 this is going to happen, turn 2 that's going to happen?
Yeah, so I think it depends almost on matchup per matchup basis, but I'm not too fast. Like, so usually what I'll try and do is I'll use the scout moves from the Catachans to make sure they're in a position to either screen my army with some melee matchups, so that I don't get hit immediately turn 1 and lose critical resources. But if I'm playing this like a more mixed army, like all comers list, I will position my army where I'm able to move forward in the first battle round and not really do damage, but stage for my turn 2 and make sure that my pieces are in the correct spot to deny primary for my opponent and position my Leman Russes and my Bulgrins in positions where if my opponent tries to shoot me off a certain objective, that I can hit them back with 2 to 3 assets plus the deep striking assets. And then you can, and if you're doing that on like 2 to 3 parts of the board, it's then all of a sudden you just start to overwhelm people. And I always focus on the parts, or at least on the anti-tank parts that can deal with the Leman Russes quite well. When I play with my opponents, I think like when I played against you, right, hit the Russes, and then the moment you came out with the Ridge Runners, as an example, I was able to then the Russes just move forward in a stampede. It's quite familiar in that aspect there with how it plays. It's very much a slow early tempo, unless my opponent tries to run at me, then all guns blazing.
What are the Bulgrin and the Ogryn doing for you? I noticed you've gone from the coveted 18 down to a 6 and 3, so like different unit sizes for different roles, I guess. And then there's
Correct.
2x3 Ogryn here. What are they about?
So the 6-man Bulgrin are essentially there to like anchor like my castle in the early game, make sure that nothing's really able to break in, and or if I'm getting rushed, they are able to tag a key resource and stop them from really hurting me, and just pushing into the mid game. The 3-man Bulgrin are there to tag a certain asset and hold a side objective and just force people to overcommit into them. And the 3-man Ogrins are just quite cheap. I mean, if you look at them, it's free. It's 3 of them for 60 points, Nick. Like, would you not pay 60 points for 9 wounds at toughness 6 with a 6-up feel no pain that also shoots 18 shots with a 9 at AP 1 to 2 damage?
Dude, I really would. I wish I had that in my army. Or guard or broken. Say less.
Like, yeah. But yeah, they act as like a slightly tougher screen and a very, very, very good bang for your buck skirmishing piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have 6 1 6-man and 3 3-mans, if we're going to look at Bulgrin and Ogren kind of similarly. Although Bulgrin are like twice the cost of Ogren. Do you use them differently?
Yeah, so the I free Bulgrin is still quite annoying for people to kill as long as you don't just put them into the open. It's not like the days of before where you could just give 18 Bulgrin plus free move and just run them at your opponent. You can't really do that anymore. So what you do is like the 6-man again operates as that, holding down the castle, but a 3-man operates as it will move on to a side objective and make it annoying but not impossible for your opponent to shoot and kill them. But if they do try to shoot and kill them, then they're getting hit back by 2 to 3 Leman Russes, or even just 2 Leman Russes and the deep striking elements, and I'm still able to hold that objective next turn with with 3 Ogrins, as now your opponent's committed to still a significant amount to kill 3 Bulgrin because they're not easy to kill, as I'm sure you know yourself. And then all of a sudden you've killed what can kill the Bulgrin quite efficiently. You've moved the Ogrins onto the point, which are maybe not as durable, but you've killed things that are efficient at killing Bulgrin, which are also, so, funnily enough, efficient at killing Ogrins. Now all of a sudden they're able to go forward and actually hold those primary points for you and just be a little bit tougher to kill compared to 10 Catachans.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, like, are your catechins kind of like the first wave of move blocking skirmish, and then you back it up with Aquilons and Ogren to box for you while you're just shooting them consistently with Leman Russes? In that plan, are you winning like over the course of all 5 turns by edging the margins here and there every turn, or is it like by turn 3 they're tabled?
Well, it's sometimes by 10-3 they are tabled. However, that's not always. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. But I think a good example of it was when I played Vis. It really depends on on your opponent more so than yourself. Like then there's 2 examples of those when I played on stream Vis the Gene Stealer codes with Biosynthetic Surge or whatever it is, the Muscle Beach.
Yeah, it's
And
Biosynthetic.
Yeah, and Vis Josh Roberts with his CSM. Like Vis the Biosynthetic, I was like, I need to sacrifice all 20 Catachans to keep him back a little bit. And and Vis the Vis the CSM, I just send out 1 unit, extra move, advance them to deny primary points early game, and then do that again in the mid, like in more of the mid game. So it really kind of depends on your opponent's approach and how aggressive they want to be, and you can usually see that within deployment.
That makes sense, yeah. And you can really adjust your play with them. I think that's one of the things that is really understated with this army is how dynamic it is, right? Like you have the ability to manipulate your units' movement and their OC characteristic by just ordering them in your command phase. Then you have ample reserves with your Scions and your Aquilons who can really come in different ways and, aggro or react defensively as you need to. And beyond that, there's just layer after layer. It's like an onion, right? The Chimera opens up, the Catechins come out, then there's Bulgrin, then there's Ogren, then there's tanks.
It is good to know that I didn't run any Chimeras because, unfortunately, I did not have any.
Your Catechins are walking around?
Yeah, they were just walking. Yeah, they were just walking around.
Dude, that's savage. How do you not run a Chimera for those boys?
Because they didn't pass a license. So.
They didn't pass their license. Okay, I mean that's an answer. They didn't drive. I get it. Why not? You didn't miss like not having a transport for them, like that layer of durability and midfield complication because you had like dudes inside a transport. It's like multiple activations to deal it all. It's also faster.
Yeah, it would have been nice, but I guess I didn't need it, did I?
I mean, no. I'm more asking why. Why did you make that choice?
So one, it was a little bit of a test in the fact that I was like, I never really liked the second Chimera. Like the Chimeras were nice, but I quite liked the Ogrins, and I really wanted to test them out at Coventry. As I'm taking that list as well to a team event this coming weekend. It would have been nice. However, the way I saw it was that within deployment and within the early part, it's actually a little bit worse for screening because you don't have, again, 18 Bulgrin. So against rush armies, I can't really afford to always put them inside of the Chimera because then I'm not screening my army. So like, I couldn't afford to take the second one. But maybe having one in like with a bit of hindsight would have been quite nice. But the ogres were nice as well. Like the Ogrins did a good amount of work, and the Ogrins also were fulfilling a similar role in that skirmishing part that were also quite annoying to kill. Just very annoying to kill, and we're arguably just doing more damage than a Chimera. And also, what I found, because the way orders work, you're actually like that. You like that 3-man Ogren unit can be OC6, whilst your Chimera can maximum be OC3. So I found it easier to use them to still primary when the Catachans were dead.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I totally get it. You kind of have like a layered amount of screening and scoring units to kind of continuously fight over primary there. Were you ever like trying to hold primary against your opponent in midfield, or just like contest their primary away while you shot them? Or was it like you captured one expansion objective on a side and like shot them off there too?
I think if I think back most of that to it, like I focus more on trying to secure my expansion, because like you still have the Hellhound, and the Hellhound either goes towards your opponent's expansion or towards your own, depending on what you want to do. But usually my strategy with holding the expansion objective is a little bit different compared to what it was before when you had 18 Borgren, because usually you just send 6 Borgren towards it and it was yours forever. But now it's a little bit more so. I might send 3 Ogrins and 10 Catachans to contest my expansion objective.
Contest your own expansion.
Yeah. And then the rest of my army pushes for my opponent's expansion objective.
So you're really going to take your opponent's side with them. And when you say the rest of your army, you mean like the 72-inch battle tanks that are not in the back, they're pressing forward?
Yes. So in the first battle round or two, they like it's also important to know I went first exactly once this event, so I went second 7 times, which is quite funny. So it was always the emphasis of my opponent to do things, but the first battle round was always quite a bit defensive, and then like usually when the reserves came in and I was able to kill a bit more of my like opponent after forcing them to send something to take the expansion objective back, then I send most of the resources there. But usually it'd be 3 Russes pushing my expansion, 1 Russ near my expansion shooting downfield, and because then at that point your opponent can't physically afford the assets to keep contesting your expansion. I found they have to score their own primary rather than deny your primary, because otherwise they're going to lose the game. But both ways were quite bad for them because they either got shot and died or didn't hold the primary anyways.
Right. Makes sense. So there's some obvious choices, obvious to me, I'm not a guard player, that I don't see here, like Sentinels. You're skipping the entirety of Sentinels here. What's going on with that?
Well, if you look at the list, right, the battle tanks have reroll 1s for hit rerolls if on objective that I don't control. The Scions have reroll 1s for hit rerolls and objectives that I don't control. I've got a Hellhound with a Flamer. I've got Aquilons, which, to be fair, most of the damage are Flamers and they come free away, so they don't benefit from the Sentinel. So when you think about it, the only thing that would really benefit from the Sentinel would be the Tank Commander, and the Exterminator. And at that point, it doesn't feel worth it because the Sentinel is as many points as 10 Catachans. And for me, 10 Catachans is a little bit more useful as it's 20 to 30 OC. It's not as fast. Well, it's faster in some cases and less fast in others, as they can go through walls. It just, because I'm not taking Rogodons because Rogodons are bad, I don't feel like I need the Sentinels.
I can get behind that. I mean, I think the Sentinels fill the role of like are also a tank, as opposed to Catachans, right? It's a relatively durable piece as opposed to 10 dudes. Obviously, it has less OC. It's not infantry. There are definitely tangible trade-offs. But if you're trying to stat check your opponent, like I have my 3 Leman Russes, then my other 2 Leman Russes, and like Hellhound, and this, that, whatever. Sentinels kind of fit that vibe, but it doesn't sound like that's what your strategy is at all. It's like you're just kind of jamming a section of the board, with tough stuff. I don't know. How would you describe that?
Yes and no. So I definitely had I was definitely trying to stat check on multiple fronts. So if you notice, all of my vehicles all have a 2+ save, and 4 of them are T11. So like, the least tough vehicle is my Hellhound, which is toughness 10 with a 2+ save with 11 woods, right? Which is already tough enough to kill. So I'm trying to stat check on if it takes a lot to kill a Hellhound, which then means whatever you've sent to kill my Hellhound has been shot back and is dead, which means you're not really able to kill my Leman Russes. I'm stat checking with 15 Ogre bodies, right? And then I'm still stat checking with, I have 20 Aquilons, 15 Scions, that's 35 Scion bodies. I have a 4+ save, and then another 20 Catachans. And then realistically, 10 out of those infantry units are coming back. So I have 65 infantry bodies. So I'm still stat checking on multiple fronts. I'm just not going all in on this specific stat check, because I find that in singles and even in teams, right? If somebody's able to tick one of the stat checks, it's like, this is not good. I'm going to lose. Like if you're taking a horde and your opponent it can just has a leaf blower, you're going to lose. So I'm trying to stat check on multiple fronts where, my opponent has amazing anti-tank. Oh, that's not good. My Russes are a bit of danger. It's fine. I've got 55 to 65 bodies. I don't even count the Leontis brick either. I've got all of those bodies to play the game, and the Ogrins and the Bulgrin. And they still have to kill those elements on top of the tanks, and those are usually doing the scoring. If they can kill my infantry quite well, it means they can't actually kill my tanks quite well. So I'm trying to cause multiple problems in this building as well, with the tough infantry, the very tough, durable tanks, and the deep striking infantry, and just the sheer volume of them.
Yeah, I love it. It sounds like it's kind of like very dynamic, not only in its plays on the table and the approach to the game, but the way in which you react to your opponent's army's ability to handle you, right? Like if they have, tons of anti-vehicle shots, you present the infantry, and if they mow away all the infantry, you can have the vehicles, and you can threat this in different ways too, like on the table. If there's your opponent's expansion is one area, your expansion is another area, the center is an area, and you can kind of manipulate which area has the threat saturation that you're trying to employ. It's really cool. I actually really like your list, Nassim. I think it's a very fascinating take on what is like a pretty honest, here's my stats kind of army. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's good. And I think it's also right up your alley. It's basically almost GSC, but tougher and shoots better.
I was just thinking this reminds me of my GSC, and I was like, why don't I try this in GSC? I mean, I can literally ally guard units to plug the holes, but Rich Runners are just not Leman Russes. It's just not the same.
No, I mean, luckily for you, if you were to take a Leman Russ battle tanks, you can kind of act independently. It's like, cool, it's headed on forwards, but it's rolling ones, and if your opponent's on an objective, you just get to reroll.
It's not bad. It's really not bad.
It's pretty good. Doesn't need an order. There we go.
So speaking of which, your Leman Russes, they do reroll hits on objectives. They reroll ones otherwise. You can order them because you're playing Astra Militarum. And beyond that, they're still only AP1. You have a Hellhound and you have an Exterminator to try to shore that up by ignoring cover and increasing AP. But those are points of failure, right? And you're kind of sending 3 tanks to kill 1 unit now. Did you find that AP was an issue for your list at all?
Not at a single point in time, no. And that's mainly due to the fact, right, that if you look at the Hellhound sponsor, pretty much the sponsor weapons on all of my tanks, with the exception of the tank commander, they all have multi-melters, which is quite powerful. So those are AP4 multi-melters that are able to ignore cover. And remember, because of my not army ability, because of my detachment ability, I'll get lethals with my tanks, V-Stair tanks, and V-Stair monsters. And you're still able to AP stack, which I didn't do as much as I thought I would need to, but still able to do. If you really need to, if your opponent just tries to stat check you, I think a good example of this is when I played Visangron in the first round. I almost accidentally killed him by just.
How do you almost accidentally kill Angron? You don't want to kill Angron? That's a bad thing.
No. I just shot some guns at him and he was left on 1 wound.
Oh my god! Casual shooting.
Yeah, like casual shooting. I was like, I'll shoot my Hellhound into him, plinked a wound or 2. Then I shot my Exterminator, only my turret into him, and I did another 6 damage because he failed 2 saves, and then I shot a battle tank into him. All of a sudden, it's AP2, ignore cover, and I shoot him and with lethals on top of the last cannons that they all have, on top of the multi-melters. It's like, oh. Actually, he failed a few of the 4-up runs. These are all minimum, it's flat 3 damage plus D6 plus 2 because I was in melter range. Mm-hmm. And that was me shooting 3 tanks into him, whilst I still had the other 2 tanks and the other Scions shooting the rest of the army and killing all of that in a turn.
That's actually insane. When you break it down like that.
If you are listening to this, it probably means you play Warhammer 40k. And if you're playing Warhammer, you know you need a lot of dice. Baron of Dice is where we get our dice from. They produce amazing different kinds of dice. We just recently got all kinds of different faction dice shipped to us, which we use on our stream games. But not only do they look really cool, but they're highly customizable. You can get different symbols, corners that are square, corners that are round, different shapes and sizes, different sided dice. It's all the rage. And they're customizable in color and design as well. They are so cool looking. Not only that, but they feel great to roll in your hands. I've never held dice that roll and feel this good. Not only that, but they are scientifically perfectly balanced. There are tons of case studies on people rolling thousands of dice and recording all the results that they get. And sometimes you might get a die that rolls just a few too many ones. We've all had to throw it out before. These dice are not like that. They are perfectly balanced to a T, thousands of rolls, perfect distribution. If you want to take your Warhammer game seriously and make sure the dice are not screwing you over, get some Baron of Dice.
Is your army's shooting consistent? Like I guess there's rerolls still on the battle tanks, which really helps the consistency. But traditionally, Guard are an army that severely lacks rerolls. Have you found that to be an issue, or the battle tanks shore that up?
Shore that up. Oh man, if there's anything I can rely on, it's on my rerolls. Oh god, that's great.
I love that. I love that for you. I mean, I'm just thinking back to the days of like indirect fire, Astra Militarum listings. Like you live and die by the 4. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good because worst case scenario you usually find is even if your opponent's not objective with the battle tanks, like I'm gonna hit you on freeze reroll 1. It's like, oh, it's only AP 1. Sometimes AP 2 or AP 3 if you really need something dead. But it's usually fine because if you shoot 2 tanks at people, and if people are within the melters or within the last cannons, those are AP 3 to 4 plus an extra point or 2 of AP. So it's punching through stuff, and you still have all of the regular shooting. The army has a lot of blast. The army has rerolls, and the Scions have the Scions. That unit was so good.
Tell me about these Scions. We haven't even talked about the Scions.
These Scions. All right. just to give an example, right?
I love how animated you are. It's like you're physically pleasured by these Scions right now.
It's so good. Nick, and you don't understand.
I want to understand. I really do.
So this is a big brick. And I'm going to tell you the price point for it because I remember when I shot them into your 20 men. And I told you to pick up half the unit after I just shot the plasmas. This unit, basically, is, when it comes down, 10 to 11 shots of plasmas. My one was 10 because I didn't have the plasma pistol. It's 15 shots. If you get all of them within rapid fire range, it's 10 shots of plasma, 15 shots at strength 4 AP 1/1 damage, 21 shots at strength 3 AP 1/1 damage. It all has reroll once to hit. It has 4 hit rerolls if you're on an objective. It all has sustained hits, and then on top of this, if you're if you're not a monster or vehicle, it has lethal hits. So combo that into something that's on an objective, you can end up splitting quite a few ways and killing a lot of stuff. Very well.
No kidding. No kidding. It's like, how are you split firing this? Like it's 10 guardsmen. Like you combo all the lethal sustained crit 5s. I totally understand. That makes damage insane. But like, what are the types of targets that you can actually kill with this?
I mean, anything that isn't like a tank or monster on an objective. Like a good example of this is I played vs Josh and I split into Cypher and like Rubrics, and I overkilled them by like 3 times each. It's like, and that's already made back for the points cost because that unit only costs 170 points. Sorry, it cost a lot. It cost us 170 points, which is a lot. There we go. I had to rephrase that.
Yeah, right. That's insane. So like that's kind of like your game ending piece, right? Like you're waiting to set this thing up. Do you ingress this much, or do you just deep strike it and let it rip?
It depends. Sometimes you ingress it. Like if you're able to ingress it and put it into a central position, because my one had the command rod, so I did want to ingress it, but not always. You'd ingress it and you can give it 2 orders, which would either be extra move, because your opponent's screened out somewhere with it from like deep striking angles, or the other one is +1 to hit. So all of a sudden now they're hitting on 2s, and if your opponent's an objective, you just fish. You don't even you just aim. You just roll only. You just aim for 6s. You don't care about the 1s.
Right.
it's good. It's like sometimes it's a game-ending piece. Sometimes it's just I'm going to kill this flank piece, because this unit is also quite annoying to kill because it's 15 bodies. With no only toughness 3, but it's 15 bodies, toughness 3 with 4+ save, and there's a medic in there with a 6+ feel no pain to the unit. And that unit is also quite annoying on the OC side of things because it has a banner, so every single model is OC2. And because God has orders for extra OC, it can be OC3 per model. So you can't just leave it alone and be like, it's fine, it won't take this objective. It's gonna take the flank if you leave it alone.
Right. You can't basically just like it'll take your whole army like if you ignore it. So you kind of use it reactively to just like win an area that you weren't going to win.
Yeah, exactly. And just create problems in an area of the board that like if your opponent only has a few things on the area of the board, because remember they're going to come down and they're going to kill like quite handedly at least 2 to 3 units of Marines if your opponent gives you the opportunity to do that. They'll kill at least 2. If you get unlucky, 2, but realistically you should kill 2.5 to 3. And then you've killed that. Now your opponent needs to respond to them, otherwise they're going to move on to the point next turn. Because there's a character in there that's just going to order the unit and make it go 9 inches with OC2, and it's just going to advance on a point or just move it and shoot, and then charge onto a point and just make it just be a nuisance. And on top of this, there's multiple problems with the Leman Russes, the Bulgur, and the Kalachans that we talked about before. There's still the rest of the list, and 20 Aquilons, right? There's just problems everywhere.
There really is. It's kind of insane. Nassim, is there anything your list struggles with? It seems like it's so good at doing everything. Like honestly, I'm not trying to be like that.
No. I think that's a fair question because I've been asked this, and I think I can't envision a singular bad matchup where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get blown out or I'm gonna lose hard, because it feels like I always have an answer for everything. But the only ones would be armies where people would try to rush me down, really, and that's what, because I went second 7 times, people tried to do that against me. They just tried to rush at me, and 2 of my toughest games, CK and GSC, were because they went first and they just ran at me, and I was like, all right then. It's going to be a game, because they get to slam into me for 2 turns before I get any sort of like backup from the heavens.
Right. So basically, like going second, getting jailed yourself, and kind of dealing with that effectively. Yeah. I mean, you're an army that doesn't have fly, right? Like that's just going to be something you have to deal with.
Yeah, but like the game also immediately ends if you get to go first as guard, so it's fine.
That's true too. It's not bad.
It's pretty good.
So, I mean, I'm really excited to hear about your games. That's going to be in part 2 of this conversation. I have one more question for you out there before we head over there. If you could give an aspiring Warhammer player any piece of advice to help them get better on their journey, what would it be?
Don't take Rogodorns.
Don't take Rogodorns. Why do you hate Rogodorns so much? They're a popular choice.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean it's good. It can be popular. It's fine.
That's true. That's definitely true. A lot of good things. A lot of popular things not actually good.
Exactly.
Awesome. That is a genuine piece of advice. Like go out there, make your own decisions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Awesome. Well, Nass, thanks so much for coming on the show. We love having you as always. You were a pleasure to talk to, and you're amazing at Warhammer. Congratulations on your super major victory at the Coventry GT. Really well done. Awesome. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you again on the Art of War 40K podcast in part 2. You can subscribe at aow40k.com to get access to this episode along with 260 other episodes. You'll also get access to our Discord server where you can talk to Nass or myself or many of our other guests anytime. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you later.
Like what you just listened to? Check out Art of War Down Under and Art of War Unbroken on the competitive 40K network. TheArtofWar40K.com.